All right. I want you to share your brilliance with me. So, what's tooth fairy science, and what are some of the alternative practices that you think might most closely resemble tooth fairy science? Group one. Anyone?
Yeah, so tooth fairy science is basically doing research on a phenomenon before claiming it actually exists. And then the example from the video that you posted is the actual tooth fairy. Just stating like before you can go and take in all these factors, like whether you leave the tooth under your pillow, if it's in what kind of baggie, how much money you receive. But ultimately, you have to look at the main thing and is it actually real? And the tooth fairy isn't real. Therefore, like there's no credible background information you can get on it. Um, in regards to the two other theories, we talked about herbal medicine and just how just because it's natural doesn't mean it's safe.
Mm.
There's like poisonous mushrooms, cocaine; those aren't safe. It's an unpurified drug, whereas medical prescriptions, it's like purified medicinal components to it, therefore making it safer. And then we also talked about the chiropractors and just how we talked about the guys, was it blindness or deafness being cured and how it wasn't actually true.
Mm.
But yeah,
Tell me how you think homeopathy might be tooth fairy science. What do you remember about homeopathy?
so with that, they associated mystical forces and how it controlled health. And that was just like a concept that they believed at the time. But
Right.
there's no like information to back that up other than like causation and correlation.
Right. Well, you have to so homeopathy is based on these two laws of similars and laws of dilutions, that if something causes a symptom, I think in one person it should cure it, in another I forget. But also the more dilute the mother tincture, if you will, the stronger it is. And there is that defies the laws of physics and chemistry. When you have a chance, if you have a chance, there was a short animation on how homeopathic remedies are made. And it actually starts with a mother, it's called a mother tincture. But then they start diluting it like 1 drop to 100 drops, or 99 drops of, say, water. And then they take 1 drop of that solution to 99 drops of water. And they repeat that again and again and again. And 30 times would be what's called a 30C solution, which means that there's one molecule of the original mother tincture in 10 to the 60, okay, because it's 100 drops of molecules, which basically means there's nothing there. But this homeopathy is this huge practice that people take these little pills and they believe that it's going to work. And there's that word, believe, because there's no data to back it up. There have never been any double-blind, placebo-controlled studies that collect data because it can't work. So to me, that's one example of tooth fairy science that you can do. You have homeopathic journals that will write about all their studies, which are anecdotes, and they'll collect all these stories over long periods of time. But there's no way that homeopathy can, from a science-based perspective, work. So to me, that's an example of tooth fairy science. And then the other example of tooth fairy science is is the energy healing, or Reiki, because you can't measure that invisible field. But you have people that will give you lots of anecdotes and tell you that it worked for them. I mean, I remember when I first was attuned to the healing forces of the universe, and I came home and I did it on my neighbor, and I put my hands on her shoulders and she could feel the energy coming from my fingers. I don't know. And yet for people, and I think one of the videos that I asked you to watch about that, where it had, oh my gosh, I can't remember her name. She's the youngest person to ever publish in the Journal of the American Medical Association. She did a study on energy healing, but they were interviewing folks who did energy healing. And there was this one woman who had cancer who was having her energy fields balanced. And she said, for me, this is wonderful. I don't need, but she basically didn't need evidence. She believed because she'd been given this horrible diagnosis and it gave her something to feel good about. And see, that's where medicine fails, because when somebody's scared, they're not always there. But that to me would be another example of tooth fairy science, because there's no prior probability. There's no scientific basis in which that could work. But that doesn't mean that your suggestions were wrong. Those are just the two that came to my mind. That's all. And, you know, I'm a level 2 Reiki magician, and apparently I've also been attuned to distance healing. So if, you know, I have my little booklet with all my hand signals, and I'm sure they're all going to curse me now, but I can deal with it because I don't believe them. I don't. Do I? Okay. So how about group 2? Just because there are flaws in the airplane design doesn't mean flying carpets work. What does that mean? I know there were people in group 2.
So the flying carpets are kind of the alternative medicines, like we've been talking about, the energy healing, the chiropractors, the acupuncture, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas airplanes are modern medicine, like lab tested and everything like that. So it's basically saying, yes, modern medicine may have its flaws, but that doesn't mean that you should immediately go and be using these uh, alternative methods.
Do you agree with that?
We agreed with it to an extent where, yes, like if you're seriously ill, acupuncture isn't, or energy healing most likely is not gonna help you. But like you said, just a few minutes ago even, um, if you do have a horrible diagnosis that modern medicine can't really offer you an answer, sometimes it is like a breath of fresh air to go to like an uh, herbal, I forget exactly what they're called, but
Alternative providers.
an alternative provider, and they might give you like a little bit of hope or just like something to hold on to for like your mental state, and that can be really helpful for some people.
For some people, yeah, yeah. So we do have lots of problems, and I talked about them in the videos. You know, doing clinical research. When you I talked about the difference between hard science and soft science, and I wanted to make sure you understood. I said that hard science is easy and soft science is hard, but I didn't want you to think that meant that you should be taking physics classes. By hard science, I mean when you follow a formula, like in a chemistry lab, when you mix chemical A with chemical B, you always get the same result. It's reproducible, it's quantifiable, because you're working with, you know, non-people. But soft science, then you bring people into the picture. And once people come in, you have all sorts of variabilities that can throw the research off. I mean, as a dietitian, I have all sorts of problems with any kind of research that relies on food recall, because I can't remember what I ate yesterday. And we're asking people to, how many times in the last 6 months did you eat eggs or red meat? So there are problems with our airplane design, but yeah, it doesn't mean that magic carpets work. Okay, so group 3, what do you think about using placebos as a treatment? Right. How would you feel about being given, would you, well, I guess that's the first question. And then the other question is, which of these practices do you think has the most science in it? Group 3?
Well, we kind of talked about how the placebo effect was a good way for like the treatments to be like known if they actually work and whether it's just in the patient's mind. And then we talked about chiropractors and how like because they're like cracking so many bones in the back, it's like important to know like the science behind like how the spine is designed so they don't like injure their patients. Um, and then whether or not it's like a placebo effect. You mentioned having the double standard, so like that could very much be so.
How is that? Where's the double standard? Where do you think that is?
Like for example, like the chiropractor, like they have to go through schooling in order to do this, But then if someone says it's like a placebo effect, like whether or not it actually works, then it could kind of like discredit the science that they studied to get their degree.
So it depends on what are they calling science? I mean, there's a whole college of what they call themselves naturopathic doctors, NDs. And yet one of the big things in their curriculum is studying homeopathy. And to me, homeopathy is the biggest voodoo, if you will, of all of them, because there's nothing there. But that's a part of their curriculum. People who go into these practices, most of the time, they believe them. There are doctors who will go to acupuncture to learn to become acupuncturists because they believe it. And then I sometimes wonder, because they offer it to their patients, does it work because the patients want to please the doctors, and the doctor's enthusiasm makes them feel better? And yet that might be a placebo. Is there really any data to show that that works, or to show that with chiropractors that adjusting the spine makes a difference? That cracking sound is just like a knuckle cracking. There's nothing magical going on with the spine when they do that. It's the exercises, it's the stretching, so just because they go to a school for their practice doesn't mean that it's science-based. That's my concern, is that and they believe them. That's why there are a lot of people out there. I believe them when I went. I would recommend a chiropractor for, again, musculoskeletal pain, but not someone who doesn't trust medicine and who thinks that just an adjustment will cure organic illnesses like the flu or cancer or, some kind of kidney disease, because that's not correct. It can help with muscle and maybe muscle and skeletal problems, but not other kinds of problems. So those are some of my concerns. And yeah, with the placebo effect, I guess when I talk about double standard, yeah, you wouldn't want your doctor to give you a placebo. That's not why you go to a doctor. You want somebody to treat you. But when we go to these providers, are they giving us more than a placebo? And then again, my friend was just saying to me today, would you take that away from somebody? And I destroy all myths and hope. So I guess so. Yeah. I guess I just want people to have the best available information when they're making decisions about their health and their healthcare dollars. Okay, group 4, talk to me about regression towards the mean.
So regression towards the mean kind of comes into play with alternative medicine, because most diseases and conditions naturally ebb and flow with their symptoms and senses of pain. So they'll peak and then they'll drop off naturally. So oftentimes when their pain is peaking, people will turn to alternative medicine, and then naturally it would have fallen off anyway, and it does. So they have a false sense of success with that. But then a month or so later, depending on kind of how it ebb and flows, they need to go back and do their treatments again because it hasn't actually done anything and it's just following the normal course that it would follow. An example of this would be having a headache. It doesn't last forever, and naturally it does kind of run its course the same way a cold would, and does end. So that kind of comes into play there. And then the second part of the question is talking about placebo. So adding on to what we were just talking about, we haven't really ever heard of doctors that are prescribing placebos. We were trying to think of situations where that might happen. So we were kind of saying that no, they shouldn't be encouraged to do that typically, because it's not really following like any of like their medical science of what actually works. But that may be case by case if someone wasn't having success, if there was a lot of gray area and maybe that they had already kind of given consent to potentially being given placebo, if it's something they would consider, like then maybe that could happen. Mm-hmm. Or also a good point was that maybe if someone struggles with addiction and they don't want to be giving them kind of like hard drugs, but they were okay with trying placebo, that is another situation maybe.
Should they know that they're being given a placebo?
Well, that was the part we were struggling with, because I feel like that's hard to then have it work still. But that if it, I don't know, kind of earlier on they gave consent to like placebo or not, something like where it was more vague, but I think they should know that they're paying for placebo and not real medicine. That's kind of how we felt.
I remember having this discussion with a class one semester, and I have students in it who don't like medicine, and the medicines have side effects. I mean, I think sometimes in order for something to have an effect, there could be a side effect. It's a matter of how much is it something that affects you? Because when you do clinical trials, you have to report, if it rises to a certain level of significance, all side effects. Like when I see a medication that a side effects includes diarrhea, but also constipation, I just figure, if there were enough people that reported those, and by law, those have to then be in the list of side effects. And I remember students saying, well, I would give my doctor the okay to give me a placebo. But you see, I don't think they're allowed to. I don't think it's ethical for them to do that. So yeah, I don't know if that would come to pass. I mean, as a parent, kissing my kids when they were, this big, that would make it go away. That's like the beginning of all placebo effects. Showing attention, showing care. And I think that, when I talk about a double standard, I just get concerned because people will have a lot of anger towards conventional medicine and talk about how alternative practices work because they care, because they spend time with you, that being the flaw in the airplane design, and because the practices work. An anecdote alert, I have a friend who, she has intestinal issues, and she went to her naturopath, who basically took her off all dairy, I don't know if I told this in class, and all wheat for 6 weeks. And she did not feel any different. Her stomach still bothered her. She still had issues, but now she seems to have a lactose intolerance and a wheat allergy. And I remember asking her, did your naturopath apologize? And she said, well, I could tell from looking in her eyes that she was sorry. And honestly, all I could think of was, if your doctor did something like that, would you accept an I apology? No, nor should you. But there's, in my opinion, there's a double standard when it comes to alternative practices. And I'm afraid that that's why they're proliferating.
Yeah, that actually reminds me. I have a friend too who went to a naturopath because they had some weird stomach problem. And they gave them a crazy diet that it was so intense they needed to have it all recorded in an app of like what food could work and what food isn't okay. Because it wasn't even like food, it was just random food by food, and it was so restrictive. And I remember like a month later being like, how are you doing with that? Because like she was so upset about having to figure out how to do it. And she was like, oh, I'm not doing it anymore. Like I couldn't even figure out what to buy, and it was just stupid, and like I'm feeling better. Like it was the whole same thing.
Oh, and I think things like that then wind up really promoting eating disorders. I mean,
Yeah.
if you have a tendency towards obsessing about food, that doesn't help. That's another concern I have. Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, group 5. What do you think about herbal medicine versus conventional medicine? And what might safety issues need to be considered when using either one?
So we talked about how just because something is like herbal and natural doesn't necessarily mean that it's safe. And a lot of like conventional medicine, it goes through rigorous trials. So they have these measures on like what's safe to take, what isn't safe to take. And like you can still OD on it and like become addicted to it and stuff. So that's obviously one safety concern that you have to think about with that. But then with herbal medicine, like you don't always know exactly what's in it. You don't know like what active ingredients and chemicals are in there. So it's that there's obviously like a safety concern with that. But at the same time, like a lot of things from nature have provided us with like some of the medicines that we have today. One example in the video was aspirin. So like all in all, conventional medicine is probably a little bit safer. But that doesn't mean that herbal medicine like should not be used at all, given that it has like it does have a lot of benefits in conventional medicine today.
So I agree. I think that herbs are drugs. I think that we get a lot of medications. And I think I was telling your group this. I would be concerned about taking herbal medicine as with the herb itself, like Chinese herbs, just because you don't know how much of the active ingredient is in the herb. Is there anything in there? Is there nothing in there? Whereas when you are taking medication, they've isolated the active ingredient and they've reproduced it, and the studies have helped to figure out what's the safe dose, is that effective at that dose, what are the side effects, so the idea is that it's gone through that gauntlet that we talked about at the beginning of the semester. That's why it takes so long to get new medications, because they have to go through all this testing. But if you're taking an herbal medication, you may not, I don't know how much of an active ingredient is in the product. So that's my concern, is that you just don't know. So that's but yeah, but the concerns with conventional medication is overdosing, or not dosing enough. Yeah, is not taking it correctly. Okay. Any questions about these discussion questions? Do I have anybody who is who's, I think I tell you in the video, and I told you last week, I did a lot of these practices. And so what is maybe inherent in this topic is my concern that people will spend a lot of time trying these out without having the science behind them. If indeed you are using any of these practices, just be safe. The idea is that you're safe and that you're taking care of yourself. That if you're doing chiropractics, please don't let them touch your neck, because that one really scares me of all of them. I don't think that, and the harm comes when you use them in place of something that's known as a treatment. In the videos, I show an example of a study that was founded by I think it was the National Institutes of Health's Institute of Complementary and Alternative Medicine on asthma. Does anybody remember looking at that study from the video?
Yeah, it was talking about taking the albuterol inhalers and then people who were given the placebo, and how when you asked how people felt, it made it look like the only people who showed that they weren't actually healed were people who didn't receive anything at all. But then when you looked at the actual results, like the hard facts, it showed that the placebo were closer to the people that didn't receive the drug than who actually received the albuterol inhaler.
The concern being that somebody might think that they're better while their bronchioles are constricting because they didn't treat their asthma. And that can be harm. That's harm. That's harm. Most of the time it's not harm. So I kind of gave you some suggestions at the end of the video that if you are following, just let your doctors know if you're following with it being followed by a doctor. If you're going to be involved in one of these practices, it really helps to believe it, because that's a lot involved, is having a relationship with the person and try to find the most ethical person you can to work with. Does anybody have any questions about the Skeptic's Guide to Complementary and Alternative Medicine? All right, so let's talk about the final. So the final, let's see, our last topic was on vitamins, minerals, bones, iron, and then we also covered this topic. So there will be a certain percentage, I haven't quite figured out yet, will come from questions. Like on the last exam, I'll ask you some questions, you'll pick some questions and answer them. I think there'll only be like 3, since it was only basically one video lecture or one set of lectures. And then for this topic, I will send you a number of different links, and they'll be under the different topics. Like for acupuncture, there will be a video from Dr. Harriet Hall, and then there will be and hers is about 25 minutes, and then there'll be some links for maybe some like 3 or 4 4-minute videos on acupuncture. Or I'll post her video link on homeopathy, and then there'll be some short videos by homeopathic practitioners. So in other words, I'm going to ask you to pick one topic, but watch the videos for both sides, from the practitioners and from Dr. Hall. And then ask you to write 2 to 3 pages. Let's see, where's my, wait, I have it here somewhere. And I'll ask you basically, would you use this practice to treat an illness? Why or why not? So basically, I want you to use your critical thinking skills, having watched both sides. All right, I'm asking you to look at both sides and then write whether you would choose it, why or why not. Okay, so that's, and I will send them out, I guess, May 1st at noon, or I don't know when I wake up, and you'll have a day and a half. So you should have plenty of time, but I will be available Thursday night, because where else am I? If you have any questions. What questions do you have for me right now?
So you said it's 2 to 3 pages?
Yeah, just
Or
write 2 to 3 pages on, what you think about the practice and whether or not it's something that you would choose, or would you not choose it? What do you think about that particular practice?
okay, and what would the format be for those 2 to 3 pages? Should it be like an essay kind of thing, or
Oh,
just
free form? I don't know. What are your options? Oh my goodness. I don't know. It was a snow day assignment one semester. So yeah, just, let's see. I mean, I remember I had students that, I think at that point I had only sent out the ones on acupuncture, and I was trying to look for the videos on that. And I mean, you can certainly pick the acupuncture, but I had students say I would never do acupuncture because I hate needles, and didn't really address the whole science and meridians. So I want you to kind of look for the science in both sides, and address that. And if you would do it, would you do homeopathy? Would you do energy healing? Would you do acupuncture? If you use a chiropractor, why? What's the science behind what the chiropractor is doing? And preferably you'll, conform to my biases in the manner, but, it depends on how well you support your position. You pretty much have to not do it to not do well on it. I don't want you to worry about this, because I think this semester has been disruptive enough. Other questions? So, do you mind if I end our semester with just a 5-minute relaxation? It's not hypnotherapy. It's just going to be relaxation, okay? And I'll read you what I'm going to tell you, and then if you don't want to close your eyes, that's fine. This is for you. I'm just going to basically say, I'd like you to relax for the next few minutes, loosen any restrictive clothing, sit in a comfortable position, and then it's a progressive relaxation. When my kids were little, and my one son couldn't fall asleep, I would do this with him. It was called The Thing. We called it The Thing because, you just didn't call it relaxation with a 6-year-old kid. And he would fall asleep. My one son was very suggestible. My other one, he would be like, and now what? So I'll just ask you to close your eyes as you inhale, and let them stay closed as you exhale, inhale, exhale. And then just kind of start with relaxing your eyes, your nose, your shoulders, just your whole body. And then I'll say, in this relaxed state, in the days ahead, I know what I have to do to take care of myself. I'll be able to sleep and get up refreshed in the morning. I'll be able to study. And on the day that I have to take my exams, I know what I need to do, and I'll get it done. And then I'll just count up to 5 and tell you to open your eyes. And that's it. All right? Okay. So I'm going to ask you to relax. I'd like you to please relax for the next few minutes. Loosen any restrictive clothing and allow your body to sit in a comfortable position. As we begin, I'd like you to focus your eyes up high somewhere in the room that you're in as you inhale deeply, and allow your eyes to close as you exhale completely. You may allow your eyes to remain closed as you again breathe in deeply and exhale completely. Feel yourself relaxing more and more as you inhale, and let go of tension and stress as you exhale. As you continue to listen to the sound of my voice, all the muscles in your body loosen up and relax completely. Feel the muscles in your forehead relax. Your eyes rest in their sockets. Your neck muscles relax. Your tongue rests on the floor of your mouth, feeling heavier and heavier. Your shoulders rest away from your ears. Your arms and elbows relax. Your wrists and fingertips relax. As you listen to the sound of my voice, all the muscles in your body loosen up and relax completely. Your abdominal muscles relax. Your hips, knees, shins, thighs, toes, all the muscles in your body loosen up and relax completely. And in this relaxed state, you can say to yourself, in the days ahead, I know what I must do to take care of myself, to conserve my energy and keep my mind clear. I'm able to sleep well at night and wake up refreshed in the morning. I'm able to study for my exams and write my papers for my classes because I'm managing my schedule in an efficient and timely manner. And on the days that these projects are due, I will wake up knowing that I'm ready and prepared. And as I begin these finals, I feel all anxiety and concern melt away. I will look at my papers and exams knowing that my mind is able to focus completely on the information being asked of me. I'm able to recall responses and answer questions in a clear, concise manner. I'm confident of my ability to complete my tasks totally and completely. Now, as I count to 5, I'm going to ask you to 1, get in touch with your body and breathing. 2, become aware of the room around you. 3, know that you are earning the grades you've worked towards all semester. 4, and 5, wide awake, alert and clear, wide awake. All right, folks, thank you. And good luck, everybody,
Thank you, Professor.
for just being part of this incredible experiment that we're all involved in right now. I really appreciate it. What a shit show, huh? All right. So I will be around Thursday night if anyone has any questions, and I will send out information. And if you just want to say hi, let me know, because I'm going to miss seeing your faces. It's been an extraordinary time. I will have everything posted. I should have everything posted so that you can figure out what grades you need. Just make everything out of 100% and take the percentage from there. Okay? And if you have any questions, just let me know. Bye-bye. Class.
Thank you, Professor. Bye.
Professor.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Robert.